Thank you very much, Chairwoman Maloney, and thank you, Mr. Dodaro, for coming in front of us today and offering your expertise in some of these emerging issues that we should be keeping an eye out for. Now, you are the Comptroller General of the United States, correct?
That's correct.
And, you know, for some of my constituents and community watching at home, that means among your many other responsibilities, you kind of keep an eye on the books for the United States. Would that be fair to say in a broader sense?
Yes, books and programs, all federal activities.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So before I begin, Madam Chairwoman, I would like to ask for unanimous consent to submit a ProPublica article on Facebook on enforcing tax law and a letter from 88 national organizations urging President Biden and Congress to invest in fair enforcement of the tax law, to the record.
Without objection. So,
thank you very much. So, Mr. Dodaro, let's talk about taxes. If I was the CEO presently of a large international corporation that was founded here in the United States and wanted to manipulate my taxes and park the profits somewhere else, do you think I'd be able to get away with that in our current system?
Well, there's a lot of potential loopholes in the current system that can be exploited.
Thank you. And, you know, actually, according to this ProPublica article, it seems that some records have been unearthed, and Sheryl Sandberg wrote in an April 2008 email that, quote, "My experience is that by not having a European center and running everything through the US, it is costly in terms of taxes." And Facebook's head of tax actually replied to Sandberg in these records, and the company needed to find a, quote, low-taxed jurisdiction to park profits. And it found that jurisdiction in Ireland, where its tax rate is near zero. Now, why would Facebook, you think, want to do that?
Well, there's different tax advantages. I'm going to have Mr. Mims, our expert in the tax area, I'm going to ask him to help comment.
Sure, of course.
Because we've looked at some offshoring kind of issues. Chris?
Thank you, sir. And yes, ma'am, we've looked at offshoring, and as you're suggesting that, you know, there are various tax advantages to where major corporations claim that their businesses are taking place, and they are fully aware of those tax advantages, and they use those to their advantage to minimize the amount of taxes that they have to pay.
Thank you.
So that is an important consideration in business decisions.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that answer. You know, and I would actually kind of contest this term tax advantage, because it may be an advantage to an individual corporation, but we currently have an enormous tax gap in the United States. Would you say that that's correct, Mr. Dodaro?
That's correct.
And so a weakened tax enforcement actually rigs this economy against workers. It seems as though we are starting to see a pattern where the IRS is starting to go a little bit more after lower income people that target the EITC, and this is kind of referenced due to the lack of resources that the IRS currently has. Would that be fair to say?
Well, the amount of enforcement efforts and auditing of the tax returns has been going down as a percentage. I'm not sure what the current mix is.
Yeah, and so, you know, it seems like companies like Facebook have kept billions of dollars in tax breaks through tactics like offshore tax evasion. But working families are struggling to pay rent, put food on the table, and stay alive. And in fact, we're constantly told that we cannot afford tuition-free public colleges, expansion of healthcare in the United States because we can't afford it. But the official estimates peg the national tax gap at $381 billion per year. But the former Commissioner Charles Rossotti estimates that it is now closer to $600 billion. Mr. Dodaro, does any other item on the GAO's high-risk list come anywhere close to having a $600 billion impact on the federal budget?
Not any one single item alone.
So this seems to be one of the largest areas of having a negative impact on our federal budget. It's tax evasion and other sorts of...
Yes. There are two others that have potential large areas. One is healthcare, improper payments in healthcare, which are over $100 billion a year. And defense weapon systems, where there's a portfolio of $1.8 trillion.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Madam Chair, would it be possible for me to have 5 minutes before we continue?
Certainly, we'll recess for 5 minutes.
So Fallon's